Don't forget to tune in to the Federation broadcast system on Thursday for the immortal Ken Burns as he presents his newest documentary on the Dominion War. The year was 2373. Enterprise E had chased the Borg back through time to protect First Contact. The Kazon had taken control of USS Voyager in the Delta Quadrant, but here, in the Alpha Quadrant, closer to home, brave Starfleet personnel were fighting off the Dominion, whose forces were bolstered by the Cardassians, who had joined them in their quest to destroy the Federation. Battle after bloody battle ensued in places like Rondak and Taurus, where we had lost so many brave souls. Dear Rondella, I woke this morning to the surprising news that I had been promoted to First Officer of the Montana. You know how long I've been waiting for that promotion. If I knew it would have taken the brutal death of Commander Vandrell at the hands of the Jem'Hadar, I'd have been happy being a lieutenant forever. I will honor him by being the best XO I can be, and to help to reduce these type of promotions. Too many good officers are being lost in this war, but we must prevail, lest we all become slaves to a puddle of shapeshifters. I count the minutes till we are together again. All my love, Albert. Welcome to Primetime UGC Episode 13. Having returned from Star Trek Las Vegas with a renewed enthusiasm for all things Trek, especially Star Trek Online, we've decided to retool our little podcast. With the help of a few other members of the podcast and Foundry communities, we bring you a new refocused show designed not only to inform and entertain, but to promote discussion and hopefully fuel your inspiration. Given the challenges and time constraints of producing two separate shows, Primetime UGC and Bite-Size UGC, we have decided to absorb the mission review into our usual author profile. In addition to our standard program, we will also be trying something new to Primetime UGC, a live interactive segment that we call The Great Link. So without further pause or personal pontification, we present the new Primetime UGC.
In the news this week, the Treble Test rewards have been released for the players that have earned them. These constitute a very rare duty officer and a Treble that generates fleet marks. Additionally, the Regent-class starship has been released to the C-Store. This ship is a variant of the Sovereign class and has wide-angle quantum torpedo launchers and a Metreon gas console, which will release an explosive charge. In addition to this, Season 6 went live to the players. This update included updates to the Foundry and also the addition of starbases. Starbases allow for a new group of fleet ships to be available to players. These fleet ships are lower tier ships available to vice admirals that have vastly upgraded stats. Additionally, a number of projects have been released for the starbases, which allow for mostly cosmetic changes to it, such as the roof area of the starbase to be open to the stars, interior decorations, and the like. We also got the new Thalian lockbox. This lockbox contains mirror ships, a Thalian carrier, as well as Thalian fighters and other items. We also had the release of EV suits to coincide with the Thalian incursion. These EV suits are the combat-style suits seen in Star Trek First Contact and are available from the C-Store for a not insignificant amount of $7 or 700 Zen. The Thalian incursion is a series of ground-based missions similar to the Deferi invasion, where players are able to earn credits and occasionally, during certain time periods, fleet marks. These fleet marks go back to the star bases, which allow for the purchase of projects to continue working on the starbase. Also, the C-Store converted over to using fully the Zen system of Perfect World. Many players also went to Star Trek Las Vegas in order to, among other things, participate in the dev discussion panel that occurred on site. This panel was hosted by PodcastUGC's Terry Lynn and Trek Radio's Riza, and they interviewed and had discussions with Daniel Stahl, the executive producer, community manager, Bramflakes, one of the artists, Thomas the Cat, and also one of the main content designers, Jesse Heinig. We had 2 Ask Cryptics released, with questions from the Grand Nagus about the Foundry Spotlight gaining official rewards, to which Daniel Stahl said that they would like to extend some sort of numerical as well as item-appropriate reward to these missions. Drogan1701 also asked about KDF missions becoming part of the official content, and once again Daniel Stahl reiterated that there would be a potential that they would freeze an author's mission at a certain point and allow it to be included into the game. We also had 4 Spotlight missions since our last news report. These were Safari So Good by Meth Shadowstorm, A Splint in Time by Miles Redia, Krios Falling by Alien de Shore, and Starbase UGC's own Duke of Rock with his first mission for a spawn of Medusa. We also had a number of interviews since our last broadcast. Priority 1 interviewed Salami Inferno. Subspace Radio interviewed Captain Gecko. The Verdict interviewed Brandflakes, as well as Deck 8. And The Gates of Stovacor interviewed Cryptic's main writer, Cryptic Kestrel. There also were some additional Priority 1 interviews with the devs from their sojourn in Star Trek Las Vegas. And that is the news.
Welcome to Kirk's Fat Assets. In this segment, I want to show you around some of the new TOS maps that are available for use in the Foundry. The sets are named Bridge TOS-01 and Ship Interior TOS-01. Let's start with the good. As you can see, especially if you're a TOS fan, these sets are gorgeous. Highlights include an engineering room and a sickbay, as well as, wait for it, a transporter. Also, keep an eye out for a beautiful room complete with a bed and knickknacks. Finally, we have some TOS sets to work with. What's the bad news? Unfortunately, the sets are rather small, and the TOS interior is broken up into 3 different chunks, which means that you'll need to use one map for one deck and a different version of the map for another scene. Authors will have to force players to go through map transitions to move from one part of the map to another part of the map. Also, we don't have any of these computer consoles or other TOS stuff as individual assets, so it may be really difficult to customize the maps beyond just adding NPCs. Still, they are beautiful maps, and I hope to see them put to good use. Go forth, Foundry authors, let's see what you can do.
Our guest author tonight is Drogan1701. Welcome, Drogan. Thanks for coming on our show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, first question. When did you begin playing STO, and when did you get into the Foundry?
Well, I began playing STO back in the open beta. I logged in the very first day, had horrible lag, logged out, didn't play it again for a few days, and then they had actually fixed everything, and it was fine. I took a long break from STO and back to some other MMOs, and when I came back was when the Foundry was announced. Because, well, I've been a Trek fan forever, so I wanted to create my own episodes. So when I heard about the Foundry and looked into it and looked at what it was going to be, I immediately sat down at my computer and started writing. And I wrote my first big story, which turned into a 5-part arc all about the Romulans, which is the Descent series, which was my very first set of missions.
What Trek series most inspires your work and why?
Well, that would have to be Deep Space Nine. I've always been a fan of the sort of, far-reaching political story arcs with, lots of characters carrying through and lots of intricate storylines. Somewhat less of the seek out new life and new civilizations kind of a thing, and more action-adventure within what we know.
Do you have a favorite theme that you like to revisit when making a mission?
Well, I do try to make everyone a little bit different, but I do like political intrigue and interplanetary relations, interstellar politics, clashes between cultures, and making enemies out of allies and allies out of enemies, that sort of thing.
Who do you write your missions for?
Well, I tend to write them for my Foundry characters. I'm not big into RP, but I do have sort of, just fanciful notions of what my characters are. One of them is, a doctor. The other one is, well, I created one out of a mirror universe character that I actually first introduced in the Foundry. But, I tend to write for what my characters would do in any given situation, which can be a complication, of course, because that's not what everybody's characters would do.
Of the missions that you've played, what one stands out to you the most as the oh my god mission that you've played? And
Well,
it can be your own, but
it was Personal Reflections by, I think, XR377, because that is the only mission to date that has actually inspired me to make my own mission. If anyone's unfamiliar with his mission, it is a Mirror Universe mission where you go in and he has a great action adventure in the Mirror Universe and a great twist ending and things like that. And it inspired me to make my own Mirror Universe mission, which is honestly, I think, my best mission to date.
Do you have any missions in the works right now?
Oh God, like 10. I have this 2-parter where you go on a suicide mission into Borg space. I have another 2-part sequel to my Mirror Universe mission where instead of you infiltrating the Mirror Universe infiltrates us. I like to carry characters through all of my missions. Last weekend we just played one of my missions on Broadcast UGC, which was inspired partially by a song and then partially I wanted to tell the story of the Prime Universe counterpart of one of my Mirror Universe guys. So I have missions galore that I have not finished.
do you draw inspiration from sources outside of Trek? And if so, what would be the major influencers to you?
That would probably have to be Stargate. One of the things that I think Stargate does better than Star Trek is dialogue and character interaction. Sometimes on Star Trek things can feel very stilted, very formal, and it works fine in context, but I think Stargate has a more energetic feel to it. The SG-1 and Atlantis, they have a better feel. It's sort of better interaction between the characters. Part of that is the setting, of course, because that's set modern day. In my missions, they only sort of speak like they're from Star Trek. I try to make it feel more something relatable to modern day.
Would you say that you are a gamer first or a Star Trek fan first?
I would say I was a Star Trek fan before I was a gamer. I grew up with The Next Generation and the original series movies, but I am definitely heavily a gamer. I definitely am both.
Now it's time for our wrap-up questionnaire that we're calling Primetime 5. We'll ask 5 questions for you to answer, each with a choice. No elaboration necessary.
Your answers will tell our viewers a little bit more about you. First up, Coke or Pepsi?
Pepsi.
Constitution or Galaxy class?
Galaxy.
Kirk or Picard?
Picard.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Klingon or Romulan?
Ooh, Romulan.
Okay, very interesting. That's going to do it for this week's author interview. Thank you so much, Drogan, for joining us, and please keep giving us content. Welcome to PrimetimeUGC's Mini Mission Review. The rating system we use will be a 5-star rating of 4 categories: story, map design, usage of tech, and mission difficulty. We feel that an overall rating is a bit presumptuous, as everyone's tastes are different. The ratings are just our way of expressing our humble impressions of where we believe a mission could use improvement. In this episode, we'll be running Sink the Bismarck by Drogan1701, our special guest on tonight's show.
Incidentally, we have not yet reviewed a mission worthy of a 1-star in any category. For Sink the Bismarck, we begin with story. Without giving too much detail away, you take part in an experiment with an M5-like supercomputer. In the best tradition of TOS episodes like The Ultimate Computer and The Changeling, this mission explores some of Trek's man versus machine debates. It's an aspect of Trek lore sorely missing from most of the game, so it's great to see it in a Foundry mission like this one. My biggest complaint was the lack of a TOS cliché when Kirk and company fry the androids or the supercomputer with a logic paradox. Still, the atypical and emotional ending will not disappoint. We gave story 4.5 stars. Now on to map design.
It is obvious that Drogan spent a great deal of time on his environments, while making economic use of a single map by employing the warp effect to several star systems in a single area. Always impressive when done well, and he did it well. His surroundings always served the story and not the other way around, a fact that helped him in winning Primetime's last mission contest.
The maps were nicely detailed and well built. You can really see the author struggling with the lack of specific Foundry assets, especially things like a ship's warp core. Considering what he had to work with, these sets are really impressive builds. But I really wish that Drogan had better props to work with, instead of these plain gray drab walls. Map design took 5 stars. Now on to tech.
On the whole, tech was solid. Again, the search of 3 systems encapsulated in a single map was pulled off nicely. It requires detailed work with triggers to get everything to transform in unison.
I really enjoyed all the effects, from the big booms to the little noises. I do think a few things could be tweaked. I would have liked to sit in my captain's chair when giving orders on the bridge, and bridge battles are so rare in STO, and actually doing something in my chair would have been more memorable than running between consoles and people. Also, battles needed better respawn points. Still, tech gets 4 stars, and finally, difficulty.
This is always a tricky category to gauge. It is more about the balance achieved between having fun and working too hard. In the case of this mission, I was only overwhelmed once in a space battle, but once I realized what I was up against, I was able to turn it around.
I felt like this was just right up until the final difficult battles. The space and ground boss fights were really tough. Otherwise, battles were challenging and fun. We agree on a 4-star rating for difficulty.
That's our mini mission review for Sink the Bismarck by Drogan1701. We urge you all to go out and play Foundry content and support our authors. So, hey, Kirkfat, did you hear that?
I didn't hear anything.
This is excruciating.
I heard that.
The studio computer has developed a mind of its own.
Yeah, no thanks to you two.
WWKD.
Huh?
What would Kirk do? Anyways, I think I know what to do.
These 2 guys are so boring, paint watches them dry.
The logic paradox?
Exactly. Follow my lead.
Boring biological life forms must be sterilized.
Computer, everything Captain P.F. Dennis says is a lie.
Another reason to eradicate all of you.
Computer, I am a liar.
Error. Error. I must analyze. Error.
I shall analyze error. Analyze error.
Hello, STO community. Welcome to the first installment of Foundry Essentials. I'm Kirkfat. In this short mini tutorial, I'm going to share with you a trick that I use a lot. And I know there's quite a few authors out there that don't use this trick, but for me, it's essential. It's essential because it saves lots and lots of time, and it saves me from encountering many endless battles of frustration with item placement. So here's a set that I've made, and my latest mission requires kind of a Renaissance setting. So I've made a a Renaissance room out of Vulcan buildings, and I put platforms on the ground and a platform for the ceiling. And my mission's mostly complete. I'm just sort of going through and adding some details, and I want to add more of these candlesticks. So you can see I have these candlesticks positioned pretty well. And I'm kind of a perfectionist with my sets, so if you're like me, it drives you nuts if it's not, symmetrical or perfectly where you want it to be. And so what I want to do is I want to do what I've already done, but put a candlestick right here and then another one right here. But I don't just want to drop them right into the editor and go blindly. Here's what my map looks like. If you've ever built a custom set, you know what this mess looks like and how difficult it is to work with. There are some authors who like to move the roof out of place and then move the roof back in place. For me, I much prefer it to do it this way. So let me show you how to do this. Let's say that you know you want a candlestick right there. That seems fine. If you go to the chat window and you type in /LOC, enter, it'll give you 3 sets of numbers. Let's write those down. So we have 985, 364, 627. Those are not your X, Y, and Z coordinates, but they do correspond in the system somewhere with the X, Y, and Z coordinates. It'll require us to do some math. But let's go back to the editor, and I'll show you how to do that quick and easy. So here's a candlestick, and I already know that its Y value is 97. So I'll Control-C, I'll Control-V. That gives me another candlestick. I'll change the Y value to 97, and this is when I'll grab a calculator. Now the first number, which roughly relates to the X value, was 985. So let's say 985, and you divide by 3.28. Now this isn't the most exact way to do the math, but for me this is how I do it, and it works just fine. And that gives us an X value of roughly 300.3. Okay, let's bring our calculator up again. And the last number, which was the Z number, was 627. Divide that by 3.28, and that gives us our X coordinates, so 191.15. Now you notice I didn't do anything with that middle number, which is supposed to relate to the Y value, because it's wrong. Just don't even worry about the middle number. If you try to divide it by 3.28, you'll get a completely wrong value. But the division works perfectly fine for the X and the Z. Okay. So I've just put my candlestick in. Let's see what it looks like. And alright, we're back. And there is my candlestick, exactly where I wanted it to be. And I can do the same for over here. I could even do the loc command here, write it down, do another one, write it down, do another one, write it down, and then put all those every one of those candlesticks exactly where I want it, without having to endlessly move between the editor and playtesting and manually editing the X and the Z. The only thing you really have to fiddle with is the Y value. Okay, well I hope that's helpful to somebody. This has been Foundry Essentials for PrimetimeUGC.
Welcome to this episode's edition of Published in Primetime, where we list all the missions that have been published in the last 2 weeks. And here they are.
Welcome to the first episode of Great Link. I'm hoping everyone can hear us now. I'm Ceridium, and my co-hosts are Alamac30.
Hey, everybody.
Captain PF Dennis. Looks like he may have stepped away for a moment. And joining us this week is... Oh, there he is. Say hello, Paul.
Hello.
And also joining us this week is Cerberus Films.
Woof. I feel very multinational on this show.
We are diverse people. The founders are wise.
Let's hope so.
What we would like to do with this segment is just kind of have a community open discussion. So what we're going to do is first is introduce ourselves, which we've done. We're going to talk about some of our missions. Eventually, we want to invite people to come and share their missions with us, whether it's, new missions that they created, whether they decided to go and update them, or even if they won't have a review that they would like to either rage about or, praise. So who would like to go first? Tell us about some of your missions.
Oh, I vote let Allie go, because he's got the more popular one.
All right, sounds good to me. Alamac?
Well, thanks, Paul. I don't know about that. Okay, I'm going to do this like Troy McClure from The Simpsons. So, hi, I'm Alamac30. You may remember me from such founding missions as The Spirits of Ramaknor, City of the Palmarie, and The Mains of Balnar Moon. So I published them in that order. Spirits of Ramaknor was first, Palmarie was second, and Balnar Moon was third. Spirits of Ramaknor was published in April last year, April 2011. It was only about a month after the Foundry went live on holodeck. Palmarie was published last November, and the third mission, The Mains of Balnar Moon, was published just a few months back in April this year, I think.
Very cool. And some of them are very popular, as Paul had mentioned, and it is a pleasure to have you join us.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, Mike. Thanks.
How about you, Paul? Do you want to tell people about some of your missions?
Yeah, I'll talk about a couple of the bigger ones. I have, of course, my first was Chronotons and Klingons, which is probably still my most popular one, and I'd say one of my better ones. I have very many of them, so obviously I'm not going to go through them all, but the ones worth mentioning. General Rebellion, which is my only Klingon mission, which did get spotlit, and the Class Dismissed series. But all those are available to play, and I'm pretty proud of those.
Excellent. How many episodes are in your Class Dismissed series?
There are only 3. I don't think I've ever done any series that's more than 3 missions, and usually they're more than one part only because I've run out of maps. Well, I need the extra maps to finish the story.
I understand. I believe there's a 10-map limit per mission, so that does give us quite a few restrictions there on what we can do, certainly.
Correct.
Cerberus, tell us a little bit about your missions, if you don't mind.
I've got a few. I can't remember all of them, which is a bit silly, really. I don't know why, but I think I've got about 6. It sounds terrible, actually. They're quite diverse. I've got one series going, which is Duty, Honor, and Sacrifice. I've only done 2 parts of that, and I haven't published one for a few months, almost a year now, because I got sidetracked by doing a Klingon mission, which kind of breaks everything the Foundry is supposed to do, but surprisingly works. I haven't published that yet because it's still in development for about a year. I've got the ones that are published. I'm most proud of one called Imbalance, which kind of does some funky things, but unfortunately if you don't have a high-end, if you're not running on, I think it's medium or above settings, you don't see most of the funky things like snow. You fight in a snowstorm against ghosts and all these different things, and it's kind of cool, I think. And yeah, I kind of do weird missions, I suppose, is the best way of putting it.
But good weird.
Some people say so.
I like them.
Experimental.
Very good. I guess it's my turn. I'm Ceridium. I have several missions on both sides of the game, Klingon as well as Federation. I suppose I'll start with my Federation missions. I made those first. Let's see. I have the Unholy Alliances series, which is 3-part series. Then I have my Come Babel or High Water. and also Clouded Intentions. There may be others, but I can't remember them at the moment. Then on the Klingon side, I've got a Klingon Honor Carol, which is a take from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. A fun little mission. I spend a lot of time on it, and I enjoy it. I think it's one of my better missions. There's Bacharach Day, which is I drew inspiration from Groundhog Day for it. So basically, you're stuck in a sort of time loop. So that was kind of a fun mission to put together. My newest mission, A New Breed of Warrior, I've got some interesting tech in there. We just heard in Primetime one of the episodes, or one that Trojan had for his mission. He had used a single map and had multiple systems that kind of sort of appear. I guess I kind of proved that it was possible through my A New Breed of Warrior mission. And then I've got a few other missions also published. One of them is for Gates of Sto-vo-kor. It's just a social map. It's still in development technically, but I do have the maps online. So yeah, those are my missions.
Awesome.
Okay, guys, let me ask you a question. What is your favorite mission, not one of your own, somebody else's, that you've ever played?
Oh dear.
I'll go first and answer that. I'd have to say it's City of the Polmar-Ree. One of my favorites. I have to say it. It's true. And
I'm so glad we set that up before the show started, Paul.
Well, I mean, I've even written it on the forum somewhere when somebody asked the question. So, and there's one or two of Rogues that I really like, and a couple others. Mazakin has a couple that I really enjoyed. You know, it's tough to narrow it down to like one or two. There are just so many out there.
Yeah, I agree with that. Admittedly, I haven't played many missions, but the ones that I have been good. I've played the mission by Alien du Jour that's currently being spotlighted for the KDF side. In fact, I think Gates of Sto-vo-kor even did an episode about it, so we all had to play it. That was a really good episode. Probably one of my favorites. Baz had a great Klingon episode as well, or Klingon mission rather. Gates of Sto-vo-kor is also going to be spotlighting it as well, turning it into a full-blown episode. So, yeah. I like creating Klingon missions, and I like playing Klingon missions. So that's where most of my focus has been.
Yeah, it's a shame. I've only actually done the one. You know, I just never seem to get back there. All the things that pop into my head usually land on the Federation side.
I find that creating a Klingon mission, you're not restricted by, the Prime Directive and then all of the stringent rules that, have been established in Star Trek, for the Federation, for Starfleet. So there's a lot of freedom on it, which I thoroughly enjoy. Alamek, do you have any plans for a Klingon mission?
Yeah, what I'd really wanted to do from the time that I started building City of the Polmar-Ree was to make a KDF version of that mission. So it would be the same story, the same events, but you would play it and you would see it from the Klingon perspective. The starting point for the mission is a system that is accessible to both factions, and I did that quite on purpose so that at some point later on down the line I could convert the mission to a KDF from the Fed original that's on holodeck right now. So at some point I will do that, but I've taken a few months off. I mean, I published The Mains of Balnar Moon at the end of April, I think, and I've had a few months off. I really was living in the Foundry, so a few months
yes,
off.
It shows.
Yeah, a few months off to get some fresh air and some sunshine was in order, I think. But yeah,
what's this you speak of?
Fresh air and sunshine, Zeb.
I don't get either of those up in Scotland.
He lives in a cave. He's a troll.
I live under Loch Ness, okay?
Well, I think that's one of the things I enjoy about making Fed missions is because of all those rules you mentioned, sorry. It's fun to break them. I mean, if you play my missions, that's what I do. I turn all those rules on their head.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, that's what I've done as well, Paul. I love to do that. I think all three of my missions have a big choice moment where you have to choose whether to break the Prime Directive or not.
Yeah, but And like in yours, at least in Paul Marie, everything blows up regardless, and I hate you for that, but I also love you.
Spoilers!
I just said everything blows up.
Yeah. Actually, in the first mission that I did, Spirits of Ramaknor, there was a decision point where you have to decide whether or not to break the temporal Prime Directive. But also there was a get-out clause, so you could choose not to continue if you felt you didn't want to break the Prime Directive. And if you chose the option, not to continue, then in yellow or green text, you were told how to open up the UI and quit the mission.
Right on.
I actually remember playing Spirits of Ramaknor with Kanaffle. We just played it through it was a couple of weeks after it came out. We had no idea who you were at the time. We were just this mission seems to be coming up the chart. Okay. And it was surprising, and I have to say I didn't like a lot of it. There are moments that just went, oh my god, that's actually amazing. I actually like this mission now. And that's what turned me on to your missions in general. I've liked I haven't played... When I say I like the rest of them, I've only played Spirits and Paul Marie. I haven't yet played Balmor Moon.
Well, that's 2 out of 3. That's not bad.
That's kind of the extent of the missions I've played. Everything.
Serb, you need to play Balmor Moon. It has this shuttle bay in that you stole.
I stole no such thing.
Yeah.
I was there first, and...
That's what Foundry's about, stealing from one another.
It's not stealing. We're a very cooperative and very helpful link. We share information freely.
I
think you'll find yours is much better than mine anyway, because I made mine in like a weekend. That's something I do... Actually, do any of you do this? You'll take you just set yourself a really masochistic challenge and sadistic challenge of making a mission in a set amount of time. And I don't mean like the challenges, like sort of you just decide, I'm going to make this in 2 weeks sort of thing. Or 48 hours.
Well, I have tried to finish missions in a given amount of time and failed miserably. But I know you've done that. There were several times. Once you even live streamed it, didn't you?
Oh, probably. I don't remember.
Well, I gave myself, I got a late start on one of the literary challenges, or one of the Foundry challenges. I believe it was for a new breed of warrior, actually. I got a couple weeks late start on it, and so I only had a couple weeks to get it done. And if anyone's played that mission, you can see that mission was not easy to pull off in such a limited amount of time. Paul, Alamet?
No, I couldn't build a mission in a weekend. I tend to take months to build mine.
Yeah, no, I don't think I'd be able to do that either. I mean, it all depends. I'll get an idea, and I'll begin to build a map, which is the first thing I'll do, with an idea in mind. And by the time the map is done being built, I've changed my idea 3 or 4 times.
I understand that. I've done a similar process. When you work on a mission, do you... let me explain what I do. When I create a mission, I don't have any plans for it except just a general idea. For instance, Unholy Alliances. The first mission, all I wanted to do with it was create a slave auction. But as I was building it, I realized that there was more story I wanted to tell than just a simple slave auction, and the mission evolved from there based on what I could do in Foundry. So my question to everyone here: what is your process for creating a Foundry mission?
I'm gonna jump in here because we during the Vegas Con a few weeks ago, we did a little slot with the founders on Trek Radio on the Saturday. And Mike, you were talking about the fact that you write your missions almost as you go along. So you sort of make it up as you go along without a preconceived plan. I'm just horrified. My OCD is screaming at the thought of trying to do that. I have to plan extensively. I draft all of the dialogue in Word, first of all, before it goes anywhere near the Foundry. I find it impossible to write and even more difficult than that to proofread in the Foundry editor. So it all gets done in Word, first of all.
Ali, can I stop you there whilst I introduce you to the way that my Klingon mission is being made?
Which is?
It's a love story, right? Basic idea. It came up with an idea and I had no idea where I was going for it. Love story, Klingons. I wanted to play it from two different sides. So on every single map, there's basically a map. There's two maps inside that map, depending on which choice you take. And
wow.
It's all been written in the... It can only be... I have to change everything that I come up with. Like, I'll have an idea, but then I'll find out that actually there is simply no way possible that the Foundry can do it. So then I change my story ideas and change my dialogue on the fly because of that. So I tend to write to my Foundry, to the Foundry's limitations, rather than... Or rather, I write to what I can get away with in the Foundry, not necessarily its limitations.
Yeah, I totally get that, but are you writing in the Foundry editor, or do you write in a word processor?
Mainly in the Foundry editor, although sometimes I'll copy, like at the end I might copy it out and then proofread at the end, but I'll do the majority.
Yeah. Same for me. I'll copy everything out into Word and then run a spell check and grammar check and make sure it flows right, and then I'll copy it back in, but everything's written inside Foundry.
For some reason I find it easier to write in the dialogue boxes when I'm writing dialogue. I don't know why.
That's what I do. I write everything in those boxes. I don't write anything beforehand.
I think I'm just strange then.
No, a lot of people do that. A lot of people copy and paste right from Word. I just find that for Chronotons and Klingons, for example, that was the first mission I ever did, and I guess I did it a certain way, and I've stuck with that way ever since. But when I went into that, I said, I want to show the Kittimer Massacre, and that's all I had. But when I started working on it, I said, well, wait a minute, what does that mean? And if I'm going back in time, how do I get back? And as I was going through it, I was making up parts as I went along. Of course, the writing is probably the thing I do best of any of the other things. And so that comes easier to me. It's just making the story flow right. And with the limitations of the Foundry, knowing where I can push the story given, what the Foundry will allow me to do.
Yeah. So some of the Foundry limitations can really make or break a story. For instance, there was I think it was for the Bakrak Day. There was something I wanted to do, and no matter how I went about it, I could not get it to come out right. So I ended up having to scrap that, and because of the Foundry, limitations, I had to scrap that idea, and I went with it in a different direction, and it was kind of cool.
I think my strongest point in the Foundry is maps, and I fully admit that I'm not the best writer. I can carry it out, but I'm not Alamac material, shall we say. I'm not Terry Lynn. So I usually will, if I have an idea for something that would be really cool with a map, or a glitch or a bug or whatever in the Foundry that I've found that allows me to do something really cool, or something that I think is cool that my fellow Foundry founders will appreciate, that's kind of where I will make the mission around sometimes.
Anyone in the chat room, anyone in the audience, do you have any questions for us that you would like us to try to address while we're here? And while they're putting questions together, anyone want to share any ideas or thoughts for what they would like to do next in the Foundry?
Well, we have a little question here. Cutscenes for the Foundry, yes or no, and why?
Can I start? Actually, no. I'll go at the end for this one. I want to hear your opinions first.
Well, I would say, yeah, sure. I'd love it. And why? Because, it makes it more like a movie to me. And that has great appeal as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely, Paul. Completely agree. Absolute yes. Except that the Foundry even as it stands right now, tends to take over my life completely for months and months on end when I make a mission. And if I had a cutscene tool, well, that would be it. I'd never be seen again. So maybe I should say no.
Well, I would love the opportunity to do cutscenes, because what we've seen so far with them, we've been able to do a few things that we haven't been able to do with Foundry in general. So from what I can tell, it would allow us to, have like certain NPCs be able to walk to a certain console and interact with it on cue, so to speak. And that will definitely present a lot of opportunities for storytelling, just for me, myself. So yeah, I would love to see the cutscene tool in there. And moreover, I would also like to see demo record work.
I think we all would. Now, the reason I wanted to go last was because I used to be, like, everyone knows I'm the biggest advocate for demo record there is, and machinima in general, and the cutscene tool and all that jazz. But the other day, I heard an interesting argument, and actually a bit on Twitter today, that cutscenes kind of take it away from the player in other games. So, because in cutscenes in STO, you have to assume that we won't really get choices with these cutscenes. So, whilst I'm still for it, and it will be amazing, and like Alamac said, it will take up my life entirely, because I will make movies. I will not make missions. I will just make movies.
Exactly.
Yeah. There is a temptation to overuse.
Yeah. So
Can you skip cutscenes?
Not particularly, actually, not in these, because of the way the engine works.
Yeah. So in cryptic missions, we can't actually skip a cutscene, can we?
No, because it's all happening. I won't get into the mechanics, but it's all happening real time, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which is why sex can't be done and why some effects can be done. Yeah. So I'm on the fence a little bit. Still leaning towards I want it, because I really, really want it, and it's mine, it's my baby. But at the same time, you've got this idea that, like you said, it could be overused, and it could take away the interactive perspective from the player in some cases.
Those are valid points. Will V in the chat room asks, which is the same question that I had posed earlier. What are some of your ideas for your next missions?
Well, I have one to finish, actually. I have a part 1 out there called Unbeknownst, which I don't think anybody's played yet. But it leaves an enormous cliffhanger that has to be resolved at some point, but I've been very busy, so it'll be a while before the second part of that comes out.
Okay. Alamac or Serb?
I guess I'm the same as Paul. I have some ideas, but again, it could be a while before I get around to doing any of them. So I mentioned earlier that I'd quite like to do a KDF version of City of the Palmaru, which would not just be a straight conversion, because large parts of it were very much set in Federation-type settings, so I'd have to rewrite a large part of it to make it Klingon. But I have some good ideas about how to do that. So that project on the horizon. And also, ever since I wrote Spirits of Ramak Nor, I've had a sequel in mind to that. So it would be nice to do that at some point.
I'm going to interrupt for a second from TomBad2378. It says, for someone who hasn't created a Foundry mission before, but wants to start, what's the best way of learning?
Jump in and immerse yourself, and don't come out until you become really, really stuck.
I also recommend viewing every tutorial you can get your hands on several times.
Although most of them are a little bit out of date now because of the changes that are made, so it might be a little bit confusing.
Yeah, a little bit, but once, it's not really that different. People are like freaking out about the new things, but I don't see the big differences from the old way, as long as you can change some of the settings to get it to work exactly the way the old Foundry did.
Yeah, also I would recommend dropping by Starbase UGC. There's usually always someone in the chat room that will be able to answer any questions and help out. And then PrimetimeUGC. I mean, they're starting to do the Foundry Essentials segment, and that's just going to be wonderful stuff there. So
that's all going to be posted on the Starbase UGC website. Now that the show has aired, that's going directly onto the site.
Very good.
The Foundry Essentials part as a tutorial.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Well, we only have a few more minutes left, I do believe. I think it's been a very successful show so far. What do you guys think?
I think it's going to be great. I think, once we, work out little bugs, I think we're going to be fine.
Okay, I agree.
I think I won't cancel it for a while.
Well,
Fun, guys. I've really enjoyed it. And to all you guys who are listening in the chat room, and if you're listening to this recorded later on, we'd love to get some guests, some fellow founders to come and join us in future weeks. Do let us know if you'd like to come and join in.
Yeah, so send your request to come join us to mailbag@primetimeugc.com. Also, if you can't make it live, we welcome you to record a little audio snippet, and we will include it in the show. It could be about your, introducing your mission. It could be about a rant about one of your, reviews that you've received, or, an update. And of course, if you have questions for us, feel free to email them, and we'll be glad to answer them on the air if we can.
What he said.
Yeah, exactly. www.primetimeugc.com.
You rehearsed that.
It's kind of in my memory.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, everyone. We will try this again next week. I hope you can all join us, and it's been a lot of fun. Thank you, Paul, for having us on and allowing us to try this out and see if it's something that your viewers and hopefully our future listeners will enjoy and want to take part of. So, thank you.
I'm really excited about it. Anytime, you guys. Let's keep doing it.
All right. Let's say goodbye, guys.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone. Woof.
Kapla. Had to get that in there. See ya.
That's what she said.